Hello, and welcome back to this episode of the Engine Room podcast with me, your new host, Frederik Saabye. This is a little bit of a different episode than we normally do because we're changing the formats a little bit here. So now we'll have three different types of episodes. There's going to be these solo episodes where I come in and explain you a concept or like a way to run GTM programs or marketing programs that's going to help you drive more revenue. We will have recipe episodes, as we're going to call them, where we bring in internal people and show you in the engine room how SparkForce does these things. So you'll be able to one-to-one copy and do that in your own business. And then finally, we'll have guests coming on sharing how they do and how they're operating in the engine room. So a little bit of an update to how we work with this podcast and how everything is going to go on. So welcome to the first one of these solo episodes that we'll be doing. And today on the agenda, I'll be explaining a concept that is called an account stage model, right? So first of all, what is an account stage model? It's a way to figure out where in the buying process your customers are. And because of some of the newer technology that's available, this is also something that's becoming more and more it's a thing that you can do better and more easily. And a typical question that would then come from something like this is, well, how is this different from a typical funnel where you have your AIDA model or like tofu, mofu, bofu setup or whatever? The thing is, this is based on, it's still going to be incomplete information. It's still going to be a little bit flawed data. But the thing is, with an account stage model, you're actually accounting for the fact that people can move back and forth between stages based on what signals they're sending you. So this is one of the keywords that we'll be talking about in this episode. It's signals and how to use it, how most people are trying to use it, and how you should actually use it. Because signals is all the rage right now, and there's definitely good use cases, but it's not being utilized the right way right now, the way I see it anyway. All right, so an account stage model is a way to kind of put your target accounts or your TAM or your serviceable addressable market or obtainable market into buckets and how to serve them the right information, right? So we need to look at this now because for a while this has been just split into basically two camps, right? So the way you've been going to market has been split into two camps. It's popularized as the 95-5 rule, where you would have 95% of your market that is out of market, and then you would have 5% that at any time is in a buying process, right? And it's a little bit too, if you ask me, it's a little bit too myopic a way to look at it. So what you need to do is you need to split this out a little bit more because there are gray areas between being out of market and being in market. Take somebody who might have 6 months left of their contract and they're for whatever SaaS product, and they might be unhappy. They might already go into research mode because they know that in 6 months they're getting out of this potentially mission critical tool that they're basing their whole thing on, their project management tool or whatever, right? So they might be in research mode earlier than when the contract is over because they want to hit the ground running, and they're maybe looking into have a 3-month overlap so they can hit the ground running, right? So there's something that's a little bit too myopic or a little bit too unnuanced in just a two-stage model where you have in market and out of market. So it gets a little too small and it gets a little too narrow just looking at this. So what I'm proposing here, or what we are proposing here, is that we have 4 stages that we're looking at. So we have our passive account, which is typically this is what has been the 95%, right? But this is typically in the area of 80 to 90% of the market. That's so we have what is this account stage model that I'm proposing? What does that look like? There's 4 stages. There's passive, research, buying, and customer accounts. And the passive accounts, they're passive, right? They're not in the market. It might be they just signed a contract, they're very happy with their supplier, or they're just not on the lookout. It's not a strategic priority, or it's strategic priority number 10. So it's not really a priority for these passive accounts to engage with your stuff. what do you need? So and like it's built up. So this account stage model is built up by the characteristics, which was what I just described to you. What do they look like, and why are they put into this account stage? Then you have what signals are they giving off. You have percentage of the market. You have who owns it, and you have what motions do you run towards this account stage, right? So you have the passive accounts, as I just explained. These are not in the market for whatever reason, right? Happy with the current supplier. They just signed a new contract. They're giving some time. Whatever that reason is, they're outside of the market. They're not giving off any signals. So this is just, yeah, they're not giving off any intent signals. They're not giving off any G2 signals or anything of that sort. They're not doing that. This is 80 to 90% of the market based on sales cycle length and contract length, right? So that's 80 to 90% of the market, typically called out-of-market accounts. It's marketing who owns it, because marketing is typically in the one-to-many communication. And the motions you would be running here would be organic marketing. It would be, so like organic social. It would be paid programs, however that looks. Paid social, demand gen programs where you like create awareness. And the goal for these accounts is to get on the day one list, right? So if at one point they are trying to switch suppliers, you're the one they think of. So that's kind of stage one of the new account stage model here that we're proposing. Right. Then we go into the next one. So then we have the research accounts, right? These are evaluating either new solution inside of the same category, or they're looking outside of the existing product category that they're buying to see if something supplementary is going on over there, right? So that's where that's kind of what they're looking at. They're looking at buying. They're not looking at buying. They're looking into researching if they need to change their current supplier or their current tool of how they're operating, right? The signals we typically see from these accounts are review side signals. So that might be they're looking at something you can buy from G2 or whatever, right? They're looking at your category and assessing the market over there. You're getting signals from product pages. You're getting signals from like informational blogs. You're getting potentially even webinars, comparison pages, something like that. So, and there could also be integration pages, or however you structured your website. This is also something you need to tailor to your specific business, and you need to think about how do we structure our website, match it onto these account stage models, so then you have something for the people in the research mode, right? This would typically be around 5 to 10% of the market that are looking here. You have this is owned by marketing because it's still a one-to-many play where you would see X amount of companies that are actively engaging with these pages or review sites. And then you would have a BDR motion most likely deployed here, because if somebody shows a lot of intent, if somebody shows that they're researching aggressively, a lot of time on the page, spending viewing the pages several times a week, so on and so forth, you could deploy a BDR motion here. And going back to that, so that would be organic social still, paid media, however that might look. You could even look at something like Google Ads here. It's going to be retargeting based on these signals that they've shown. Pull that in, give them the right information. It's very much about building trust and credibility at this point. So you need to show them why you solve this problem the way they need to, right? So that's case studies. It's social proof cases like customer testimonials. It's ROI calculators to help them build the business case internally, right? The next stage is these buying accounts. And these are actually actively giving off signals that they are buying that they are shopping or buying a new solution, right? The signals we see here is that they are in our product for a 30-day free trial, or they are in our pipeline having an active conversation with one of our salespeople, right? So the signals that we see here, they get small because we need very concrete proof, or they don't get small. there's fewer signals to look out for here, because we in order to put them into this this buying category or this buying stage, we need very concrete proof, and it has to be known accounts. So they are in the product if you have a PLG motion or like a free trial or something like that, or they're in our pipeline, so we can actually see that they have engaged in a sales process. This is typically 1 to 5% of the market at any time. And the owners here, we still have marketing because we are able to run stuff like pipeline acceleration campaigns, right? And then we typically have an AE taking over at this point, potentially sales engineers that are, showcasing the product and running the sales process on the side as a dual track on the side of also this pipelining acceleration marketing. The motions here, again, paid marketing, retargeting, it's can be organic as well still. We are still in the trust and credibility phase because they're probably scoping other companies that have been on the day one list. And then it's also a matter of helping them internally build the business case. So here, ROI calculators become important again. Case studies become very important. Outcome-focused case studies becomes very important here as well. And then the final account stage is they are customers now, right? The signal we give here, we have CSM interactions, we have complaints potentially, and then we have recurring revenue from them. So, or a signed contract, right? So this is some of the signals that we're seeing from them. It is X% of the market, and that depends on your size and all that stuff. So it is some part of the market that you have as customers, hopefully. The owner here would be CSMs and potentially also marketing, depends on size, and also depends on vulnerability of the product that you're selling. Because if it's highly dependent on having the right, for example, consultants on the case, and you see one of your consultants leave, then you need to have marketing involved as well. So they're not just they don't just have person or people affinity to your company. You need to build brand affinity. So they're not just buying your solution because of the salesperson or the CSM that they have, but also actually because of the brand that you have. The motion you're running here is account management, it's customer success management, and then we have the customer marketing that I explained a little bit of, like, taking away all the what you want to call it, all the reliance on the consultant or on the salesperson. So that's kind of the account stage model that we're looking into. And one of the things that are super important to understand here is that it relies a lot on signals. And signals is something that's getting thrown around a lot. And the thing is, it's being positioned as the new-ish, the new thing to do. And if you just look at signals and you just use signals, then you're going to win. And that's not the case, because a signal is actually also signing up for a webinar or downloading a fucking ebook. So it's a matter of the quality of the signals, right? So it's not just, we run signal-based marketing. You have to take a hard look at what signals are you seeing, because if you just, the use case that I'm seeing out there right now and how a lot of people are using these signals, it's not different than how you used to, or not used to, a lot of people still do, but it's not how, it's very closely related to how you would do when you had the gated content era, right? So you would do it, you would have an ebook, you would have 5 emails, and then you would have a BDR reach out, right? And that's still how it's used. So let's say you see a signal from somebody and they've been on the pricing page 3 times in 90 days, right? A signal pops up, you see it, send it to the BDR, and then they start hunting down, multi-threading, hunting down over there. That's not necessarily how you want to do it. Part of making signals work is how you do outreach, but it's also being very critical on what signals you do outreach on. Maybe if you are able to identify 2 or 3 very high intent actions that are on your page, and you're able to look at existing relationship with these companies, and that might just be BDR knowing somebody over there and they can reach out over there, then BDR reach out makes sense. But just spray and pray and say, now they've been on our front page 4 times in the last 7 days, that's not a signal that's worth pursuing. It's a signal for something else, that they are starting to notice you, and that they might soon enter into a research, because you can see they're also looking into the product pages, so on and so forth. So it's the quality of the signals, and it's how well you're able to use it. So it's not just a matter of collecting a lot of signals. It's also making sure that you have the right analysis of these signals, right? If let's say that you set up a BDR campaign and you do it on people who visited the pricing page 3 times in 14 days. Let's say that. And you start to reach out, you get, let's say, 100 reps, 100 attempts, and you haven't managed to convert a single into a meeting. Then that signal is probably not the right signal. Then that signal is something so this is probably not the right sales signal, but it's maybe a signal that you can use to put them into a retargeting flow and give them more information on why they're probably comparing, right? What package do I need? They're probably comparing you to other competitors. So then you would want to run something that positions you maybe against the competitor or against the problem and how you're solving that. So it's not just, we use signals. It's a matter of how do we use these signals the right way. All right. This is a way you can use your account stage model to set up your actual go-to-market motion. Okay. So let's go. So what you see here is a go-to-market flow of how you could, do your set up these and use this for something that's it's an ABM way to use the account stage model that I just set up. So what you have on the top is you have your total addressable market, you have your serviceable addressable market, or your obtainable market, right? And this actually leads into your ICP after this. So how does the ICP look like? And you cluster this, or this is clusters or segments. It's basically the same thing, but you cluster this, and then you figure out what are common denominators inside of your ICP. So it's a basic segmentation exercise, and that can be on anything really. So it's not just that you're segmenting on industries or a number of employees. It can be on anything, right? It can be on problem perceived or tech stack or whatever makes sense to you, right? So then you divide it up, and it can be on less than 4 clusters. It can be however many clusters or segments it needs, and it can also be, on fewer. So what you do, you have your motion, and then however many of the clusters or the accounts in the clusters or in the segments are not giving off any signals in the last 30 days, you put them into your passive list. And here, what you do here is that you run your demand gen campaigns. Once they start to give off signals, you will either bucket them into the research or the buying, right? Based on the signals that they give, based on the analysis that you've made. So you would bucket them into either one. And if they are in the research mode and they're showing enough, intent or something like that, you could have your BDR, SDR, AE outreach, depend on how you set up, right? If you have full cycle AEs, then obviously they're the ones reaching out. But this is going to be lukewarm outreach, right? So you either do that or you get the get in touch form submission, free demo or whatever. And then they're going to go into buying mode, right? So then you're going to add this to the new one. To the new campaigns you're running or whatever, right? So this is how you set it up, right? So based on the signals that you're getting, you can bucket them into either research or buying. And then what's super important about this is that they can go back and forth between all of this. If it gets cold in the sales process, but you're still seeing these companies that are researching, then you obviously going to have an outreach motion on them to get them into an active sales cycle again. But if they're not, and they're back into research mode, they get back into research mode, and then they get back into the research marketing setup. Same way they can go back from being in research mode back into being passive because we haven't seen any signals from them in the last 90 days. So that way they can move back and forth between this. So it's not a funnel. It's more like it's a flow. It doesn't flow, or it's not a flow. It just doesn't flow one way. It can go both ways. And that's very important because it's based on what activity do we see from them. Once they're into the buying, you run that marketing, credibility, business cases, and then you can do exclusions of the customers, or you do customer marketing, right? So it's not one or the other. Depends. It's not as important. What you're doing here is we're also looking at the tech stack, right? So I have something like Dream Data. They just launched their new, I'm not going to promote them, it's not paid, but they launched their new signal, and that works well. And it's also cool to do it in there because of, you're able to send audiences directly from there. So that's going to make it easy for us to just show, the right research, what you want to call it, research content to the people in research mode. So this is little bit more of a more modern way to run your campaigns, right? It's not just say now that we have like seen somebody engage with our video, or somebody has been on our website or whatever, then you do retargeting based off of that. No. It's based on what signals are they sending you, and does that give you an indication that the companies sending these signals are in research mode or are in buying mode. So it's a much more sophisticated way of setting everything up. And then you are able to give the right content at the right time. Such a cliche, and it's also not right, because it's still incomplete data, and you won't be able to get everything, and you won't be able to tell what person it is that from this company that has bought. So it's still going to be a guessing game from the BDRs to reach out, but nonetheless you're able to send this account into your new research marketing setup, and you're able to give them more interesting content based on what interactions they've given you. All right, so that was a walkthrough of a new way to look at your go-to-market setup. It's an account stage model, and aside from that, I just want to say thank you so much for taking your time to listen to this first episode, and have a wonderful week.